which genes someone has, the type of hormones and their levels, and the anatomy. Anatomy is how your body is made up. Okay, so we can look at some features that you have on your body. When you have, for example, the female genitalia, then you will be allocated your gender or your sex as female. Then if you have the male genitalia, those are the primary characteristics. And then they give you your sex at birth or gender at birth. They will refer to you as male. So we look at what is based on before ascribing a particular gender. Kabla uitwe mwanaume au mwanamke, ni nini wanaangalia? So on the basis of genes and chromosomes, okay, so as human beings, we have 46 chromosomes, which are arranged in 23 pairs. And we get one set from our parents. So of the 23 pairs, we get one each from our parent. So we have 46 chromosomes, 23 from our father, 23 from our mother. Most importantly, there are two of these chromosomes, which we call sex chromosomes. Those are the ones that will help to determine the biological sex. So if of the two sex chromosomes, that is the X chromosome and the Y chromosome. So when you have two X chromosomes, then you typically develop as a female. Okay, so when any person who has two X chromosomes will usually develop female reproductive anatomy. So they will have ovaries, they will have a uterus. Then upon maturity, they will develop secondary sex characteristics for female. So things like development of breasts, having a higher pitched voice. Okay. So anyone with two X chromosomes will generally develop traits that are associated with being female. So that is on the basis of chromosomes, on the basis of biology, we can refer to someone who has two X chromosomes as belonging to the female sex. Then when you have one X chromosome and one Y chromosome, you typically result in the development of a male sex. So we refer to you as a male. So the one X chromosome and the one Y chromosome will lead to the development of the male reproductive anatomy. Okay. So primarily, you'll have features on your body that will make the sex they assign you as a male. Then upon maturity, you will develop what we call secondary sex characteristics. So when you've matured, then you now have hair on your face, you have a deeper voice, okay? So it means in terms of biology, in terms of chromosomes and genetics, we can ascribe your sex on the basis of which chromosomes you carry. When you have an X chromosome and another X chromosome, you are likely to develop female characteristics. When you have an X chromosome and a Y chromosome, then you are likely to develop male characteristics. So usually the problem with the use of chromosomes is there are people who don't fit into the XX-XY system. So there are some variations. Kuna wale watu utapata, they only have one X chromosome. Okay, so they don't have two chromosomes, they just have only one chromosome. So when they have just the X chromosome, and then they suffer from what we call the Turner syndrome. So when someone is born with just one X chromosome instead of two, so it could have either been an XX or an XY Y, but they just have only one X chromosome. No other X chromosome, no other Y chromosome. So because of the presence of just the X chromosome, they will typically be assigned the female sex at birth. But because they only have just one X chromosome, they end up having some queer characteristics. So these are people whom you find they will be females at birth. They might have some shorter stature, wanakuwa wafupi kiasi. Then their ovaries will be underdeveloped. So their ovaries are not fully developed. By the time they get to maturity, they might not even have or experience menstruation. Because of the underdeveloped ovaries, they end up being infertile. Okay? So those are some of now the characters. So you have people who have a chromosome, but not a complete set. Okay? But because they have the X chromosome, they are born with the female genitalia. But then they have some characteristics that come with the incompleteness of the number of chromosomes that they need to have. So even based on the amount of hormones, the level of hormones, people who suffer from this Turner syndrome will not typically produce enough levels of the hormones they need. For example, estrogen. Okay. So it means unless the level of estrogen in their body is increased, they might not even develop breasts. They might not have very good health of their bones. Okay. So on the basis of just chromosomes, when someone has only one X chromosome, they are assigned a particular sex, female, because they have the female genitalia. But when you proceed beyond there, you realize that they suffer from many other deficiencies, which might not make them to fully develop into a normal female. So that was the case when one has just one chromosome. But there are cases when someone can have two X chromosomes and a Y chromosome. So they end up having X, X, Y. So in that case, this is a person who is now having an extra X chromosome. Okay, so they have two X chromosomes and a Y chromosome. So in that case, because of the Y chromosome, they will typically be assigned the male sex at the birth. But they have two X chromosomes, so they will typically have a mix of both male and female traits. Okay. So the function of the Y chromosome is to determine maleness. Anytime there is a Y chromosome, then they'll have the development, for example, of the male genitalia. But because they have two X chromosomes, watakuwa na some characteristics of female in them. Okay. So the common characteristics will be, they will be fairly tall in height. They'll have a reduced amount of testosterone, which is a hormone. Okay. Then they will have breast tissue development. Okay. They will generally end up being infertile. Okay. So these are people who have a male genitalia, but still, because of the two X chromosomes, they show some characteristics of being female. Okay. There is presence of breast tissue, yet they have the male reproductive organ, but you still can see the development of breasts. Then they'll generally have less body hair. Okay. So those are two cases. One having two X chromosomes and a Y chromosome. then the other one having just one X chromosome. So yes, they can be assigned to a particular sex on the basis of what genitalia they carry. But when you look at their characteristics, you realize that even if they have the male reproductive organ, but they still have other features that female also have. Why? Because they have chromosomes that are leading to the development of these characteristics. Okay. So the variations that we've seen, the Turner syndrome and the Klinefelter syndrome, they illustrate that the assignment to a particular sex, either as male or female, is complex. Okay, it's complex. And now when we recognize this complexity, because if someone is having two X, so you have XXY, because of the Y chromosome, this person will have the male reproductive organ, but still will have a lot of features that are associated with being female. So anatomically, this person is a male, but most of the things that person does, the way they portray themselves, even physically, ukimwangalia unaanza kufikiria huyu naye karibu ningefikiria ni mwanamke, but ukienda ni kama kwa pali mnaenda kukojoa, unaona yeye pia anaenda kwa wanaume. Okay, so that is how complex it is. So we need now to understand and respect the diversity of human biology, because it goes beyond just the characterization of human beings as male or female. So it is beyond there. There are people who end up not falling from a biological definition into the male category. There are people who will not fall into the female category on the basis of the biological definition. So we'll try to see then how do we deal with this as we go forward. So when you have some people who are insensitive to hormones like androgen, so when someone is insensitive to hormones, a hormone like androgen, so they'll be suffering from the androgen insensitivity syndrome, even if they have the XY chromosome, which means because of the Y chromosome, they will develop the male reproductive organs, but they will end up now developing female physical traits because their body is not responding to the male hormones. The androgen hormone is what will trigger
Hello, class. The lecturer is having some challenges with the internet, but he'll be joining in a while. Just hold on a little bit.
Sorry, we had internet issues at the university, but now they've resolved. So I'm back. So we're trying to explain the aspect of sex with how now you can use chromosomes to categorize someone as either male or female. But we've seen that there will be some cases where someone will have the reproductive organ for a male, but they have physical traits for a female. And the opposite is also possible. So on the basis of hormones, hormones are the chemical messengers. Okay, so these are chemicals that are produced by glands in our body. So some of the glands that you can think of, like the mammary glands, otherwise called the breasts, the salivary glands. So those are some of the obvious glands that you can think of. So all of these produce hormones. And hormones, they travel through blood to deliver signals. The signals delivered by these hormones will regulate various body functions. Some of these functions include things like growth, metabolism, the mood you are in, for example, and most importantly, sexual development and reproduction. So, two important hormones that we can begin talking about, which are critical for the female, for the development of female sexual and features and eventual reproduction, is the estrogen and progesterone hormones. So these two hormones, they primarily influence female puberty and reproductive health. So estrogen is the hormone which helps in the development of the secondary sex characteristics. Secondary sex characteristics are the characteristics that you were not born with, but they develop when you've matured. So when you are born as a young baby, you don't have breasts. Your hips are not widened, okay? But you develop breasts when you've matured. Your hips become broader when you've matured. You don't begin menstruating early. You begin menstruating upon attaining reproductive maturity. So these things you develop, these characteristics you develop later in life, those are the secondary sex characteristics. The primary sex characteristics are the things you were born with. Okay, so estrogen helps in the development of those secondary sex characteristics. Then progesterone is now important for pregnancy. So it's the one that prepares your uterus for pregnancy, and it's the same hormone, progesterone, that will help in maintaining pregnancy. Okay. So during puberty, puberty is now when you've matured, you've attained reproductive maturity. There will be rising levels of estrogen. So once the levels of estrogen have risen, then you begin to develop these secondary characteristics. You begin now to have menstruation. So which means if you don't have enough of the estrogen hormone, if the levels of estrogen hormones are not high enough in your body, you might be born female, but then you might not fully develop the secondary characteristics that are typical of a woman. Okay. So the levels of progesterone will increase during menstruation because it is now just before menstruation that your body prepares itself for possible implantation. So progesterone will begin just before so that it prepares your uterus. It makes your uterus to have a lot of blood supplied there in preparation. Okay. So those two levels, those two hormones, their levels will be important. But if you don't have enough of them, then you are likely not to have the features of a woman. If you don't have enough of the progesterone, for example, you might not have your uterus ready for pregnancy. Then if that is the case, then you might have difficulties being pregnant. Testosterone is a hormone that primarily influences male puberty and the characteristics like muscle growth and voice deepening. Okay. So it means if you are born as a male, but you don't have enough levels of testosterone, then you will not develop most of these characteristics that testosterone leads the development. You might not have, for example, a deep voice, okay, because you don't have enough of the testosterone. So you have all the anatomical features of a man, but you don't have some critical characteristics that are associated with a mature man. Okay. So when the levels of these hormones are imbalanced, they can affect sexual development. Okay, they can affect sexual development. So the case where both of them, both the male hormones and the female hormones, your body is not producing enough, we call it hypogonadism. So your body is not producing enough of those two hormones, the hormones that you need for your body. If they are not being produced enough, then what will happen is that you can either not have puberty or you will have puberty that is delayed. So when your peers are experiencing puberty, you experience it later, because what will signal the development of all the features that will bring you into your puberty are these hormones. But if they are not there at the correct amount, then the development of that stage will either not happen at all or it will happen at a delayed time. Mostly, maybe you've had a friend, when you are experiencing your menses, they are not. Yet ni mtu mlizaliwa pamoja, mumekuwa, you are age mates. Okay? There are even some ladies, for example, who don't menstruate at all, just because they don't have enough levels of those hormones. So in such a case, then there's what we call hormonal therapy. So the level of hormones can be increased, can be given some drugs to increase, to raise the amount of hormones in your body, so that now your body can be triggered by the increased hormone levels, so to develop the characteristics that are needed. Okay. So if we now go to the anatomy. So anatomy is how your body is made up. So when you look at the anatomy and the reproductive systems, they play a key role in the allocation of biological sex and even in the reproduction. So the primary sex characteristics refers to the reproductive organs and genitalia that a person is born with. Okay, so anything that a young child will have, those are the primary sex characteristics. Any anatomical feature related to the allocation of sex, either as male or female, that a child is born with, those are the primary sex characteristics. The secondary ones is what they develop later in life. Okay, the secondary ones is what they develop later in life. So which means hormones are important in the development of the secondary characteristics. But genetics plays a big role, and chromosomes, they play a big role in the development of the primary sex characteristics. So you can either be male or female on the basis of which chromosomes you carry, on the basis of which hormones and their levels in your body, and on the basis of the anatomy and the reproductive organs that you carry. They might assign you as male or female at birth on the basis of the primary sex characteristics. But later on, if you don't have enough of the hormones, which will lead to the development of certain secondary sex characteristics, you might end up having a male reproductive organ, for example, but not developing secondary sex characteristics that are associated with being a male. You might have had mwanaume tu ni mtu mkubwa na hana ndevu. Sio kwamba amenyoa, hana. Okay? You might have had such a person, utapata labda hana ndevu, na hata sauti yake, when you expect sauti yake ikuwe you call it ime break, they still have a high-pitched voice. So such could indicate some level of hormonal imbalance. Okay, it could indicate some level of hormonal imbalance. So sex is on the basis of the chromosomes, on the genes that you carry. It's on the basis of the hormones and the levels of those hormones in your body. It can also be allocated on the basis of the anatomy and the reproductive organs that you carry. What we've seen is you can assign someone at birth kwamba huyu ni msichana, but ikifika ile wakati wanasema kwa Kiswahili kubalehe, ikifika hiyo wakati utaona kwamba she might not develop those secondary characteristics that are associated with a mature lady. For example, she might not develop breasts. She might not have a wider hip. She might not eventually even undergo menstruation, just because she does not have enough of the female critical hormones that are responsible for the development of secondary sex characteristics. Okay, so with sex is how they call you are categorized as either male or female or intersex. And it is on the basis of those three things, either the chromosomes, the genes, either on the level of hormones that you carry, or your anatomy, the way they look at you, your anatomy. So the topic of this was sex and sexuality. So we've looked at sex. We've seen how we can define sex from those three, how we can assign sex to an individual from those three perspectives. But now, how can we unpack sexuality? Okay. So sexuality is a complex and deeply personal part of human life. Sexuality influences how we form relationships, how we experience attraction, and how we express ourselves. So whom are you attracted to? Okay, and how do you express that attraction? So to understand sexuality, let's break it down into the various aspects. So the first aspect of sexuality is attraction. So attraction is the way you make a connection with someone. Okay. So attraction is a core part of sexuality. And you can be attracted to someone emotionally, physically, or even it can be a romantic attraction. At times, it can be all those three. Okay. So people can feel attraction in different ways. And still, that is all valid. So when your way of expressing attraction is emotional, it should not make the other person who has a physical attraction to feel as if that person is not normal. People feel attraction in different ways, and the way they feel, as different as they are, all those ways are just valid. Okay, all those ways are valid. The example I've given here is, I just picked a name, Maria. So if Maria feels emotionally close to her best friend, but she feels a strong romantic attraction to her partner, where she wants to date and build a life with them. So this is one person, but having different types of attractions to different people. To one person who is her close friend, her best friend, she has just a close emotional relationship. But then out to her partner, she has a romantic attraction. Okay. So in this case, there is the emotional attraction and there is the romantic attraction. Okay. So that is attraction. Is it physical? Is it emotional? Is it romantic? Okay. Then the second aspect of sexuality is sexual orientation, which now defines, which explains whom are you attracted to? Whom are you attracted to? Okay. So the pattern of attraction is described by sexual orientation. So once we understand sexual orientation, then it helps us to define. When you understand someone's sexual orientation, then you can now describe the sexuality of that person. Okay. But how you label someone might not be how they see themselves. So it is always for people to describe themselves, not for us to label them. And ways of sexual orientation, you can either be heterosexual when you are attracted to someone of the different gender. You are either homosexual when you are attracted to someone of your own gender. You are bisexual when you are attracted to both male and female. Okay. Then you are pansexual when you are attracted to people irrespective of their gender identities. Then there are some people who don't have any sexual attraction. So they are called asexual. So sexual orientation is whom are you attracted to? There was a bit of sexual attraction, but now that attraction is to whom are you being pulled towards? That is sexual orientation. We'll look at it a bit more in some section as we move. Then the other aspect of sexuality is sexual feelings and the desire. So the level of feelings, they can vary between individuals. There are some people who will experience very strong sexual desires, while there are others who might not experience them at all. But what is important is that both of these people are just completely, it's normal to be what they are. Okay. It's normal for someone to either have a very strong sexual desire or not to have the desire at all. Okay. So for example, if someone is sexually attracted to their partner and enjoys physical intimacy, but there is someone else who is asexual, meaning they don't have sexual attraction, but they only have emotional closeness. Okay, so you just want to have someone that you can get close to and share whatever it is that is disturbing you, whatever it is that is bothering you, but no sexual desire, even if that person is of the opposite gender. Unakuwa tu na rafiki mwenye ukiwa na challenge, unachukua simu, unapigia Jen, mnaongea, unamwambia whatever it is that is bothering you, but no sexual feelings. Okay. But this other case, you have very strong sexual feelings towards your partner. Okay. And still you enjoy physical intimacy. Okay. So those are two different scenarios. Now, the aspect of identity and self-understanding. So sexuality is not just about attraction, but it is also about how people see and understand themselves. So the way you perceive yourself, when you are just now sitting there and wondering, who am I? Do you understand who you are on the basis of sexuality? Do you know, for example, whom you are attracted to? Okay. So how do you identify yourself? How do you understand yourself? because you are the person who has a higher probability of labeling yourself, allocating yourself an identity, because you know whom you are attracted to. You know what type of attraction it is. People could be seeing you close to a particular person of the opposite gender, but deep down you know huyu ni rafiki tu, hakuna kitu ingine inaendelea. So when people are thinking that you are dating this person, but deep down we mwenyewe unajua kwamba huyu hakuna kitu inaendelea. So you are in a better position yourself to identify yourself, to label yourself, because you understand yourself more than any other person. So sexual identity is the label that people choose to describe their sexuality. Okay. So how do you describe yourself in terms of whom are you attracted to? Okay. What is the level? What is the type of attraction that you have towards different people who have different sexual identities? So for example, if there's someone who was identified as heterosexual, but later on, they realize that they felt attracted to multiple genders, they can now begin to identify themselves as bisexual. Okay. Because most of these identities, they keep changing. The way you discover yourself changes as time goes by. So you are in a better position to give a label to yourself on the basis of how you feel, how you connect, how you are attracted to different people. Then sexual expression. So how do people show their sexuality? How do they express themselves? So sexuality can be expressed through behavior, through communication, through fashion, and through many other things. So people will express their sexuality in different ways. And the most important thing is that this expression evolves, keeps changing over time. So there are people, for example, who will wear clothes that makes them feel confident and feel attractive. There are others who will choose to express themselves sexually through flirting, okay, through sharing. They talk of now the love languages. Okay, there are people who have different love languages. Okay, and there are people, for example, who might choose to engage in consensual sexual activities in a way to express their sexuality. But there are others, they will want to have a relationship, but they don't necessarily want to engage into sexual activities. It is out of their own will. So when you have maybe you have a friend who is dating someone, but they never get into some of these consensual sexual activities, and it is their making, it is their choosing, it is perfectly okay. You don't have to keep labeling them or thinking that maybe they are not normal. It's perfectly in order, because the way people express their sexuality, it is different. So there are people who choose to express it differently. And just because they are not expressing it the way you think they should, does not make them to be abnormal. Okay, so sexual expression is how people show or share their sexuality. And this sexual expression is largely influenced by culture, personal values, because maybe you are brought up in a church, you are brought up in a different family where values that were inflicted into you very early on are different. So you end up having values that are very personal and different from other people, as is expected, because we were brought up in different setups. So the level of it, the way people express themselves sexually is an aspect of culture, is an aspect of the personal values that they were given as they were being brought up. And that is now what brings the differences that we now see. Okay. What about now sexual behavior and identity? So sexual behavior is how people express, how they behave. So how they choose to show or express or experience their sexuality. Okay. So there are two common relationship types. There are people who will have the monogamous relationships. So they will choose to have one romantic or sexual partner at a time. That's a monogamous relationship. That's how they've chosen to behave sexually. That's a sexual behavior. That's how they're expressing themselves. But now there are others who will have the polyamorous relationship. They are having multiple romantic or sexual partners. Okay. So they have, with the monogamous one, you only have your girlfriend and your boyfriend. You are willing to. But with the polyamorous one, uko na 2 or 3 boyfriends. Now the boyfriend pia ako na 3 or 4 girlfriends. Okay. So that's the behavior. That's the way you've chosen your relationship style to be. Okay. And the sexual identity thing is how you understand and label your sexuality. Okay. So how do you label your sexuality? How do you label your sexuality? For example, if you are bisexual, meaning you are attracted to more than one gender, but then as time goes by, it might be you are attracted to male and female, but at that particular point, you are only dating. You are a female attracted to both male and female, but at that particular point, you only have a female. That does not make you a lesbian. You are still a bisexual. Okay, because a lesbian will now be female to female. But in this case, ni sababu tu umepata msichana, hujapata kijana. Okay. So the identity as bisexual will still be valid. Okay. So just because at that particular point, you only have a man, but you've not gotten a woman in that type of relationship, does not make you straight. The way you are attracted to both, yet you've only gotten one, does not now make you straight. Okay. If, for example, there is someone who is asexual, meaning they don't have sexual attraction to any, but still they enjoy some physical attraction. So they can enjoy company, a lady's company, but there is no sexual attraction. So that does not change the asexual identity of such a person. Okay. So it's just that they are not expressing any love to this person, that they are always physically together. So the way you relate does not change who you are. Okay, does not change who you are. Okay, we come back again. A lot of power disruptions, they lead to internet loss, but we'll struggle through and finish. So I had said that sex can influence sexuality. Okay. So in a way, when someone is born with the male anatomy, that person, who the person is attracted to, is not limited by the anatomy that person is born with. Okay, so you can be born as a male, but still end up being attracted to male. You can be born as a female and end up being attracted to a different gender. So the sex you are assigned cannot limit whom your feelings will take you to. Then the second point under the connection between sex and sexuality is sexuality can affect how people feel about their bodies. So a person's sexual orientation or gender identity can shape how they view and connect with their body. So for example, a transgender woman, transgender means someone was born with a different anatomy, but now they switched. Okay. So a transgender woman, this is someone who was born with a male anatomy, might feel more comfortable and happy in her body after transitioning, after changing. Because the anatomy she was born with, it is what made her to be called a male at birth. But then she was not ready to identify as a male. So she preferred being a female. So she feels more comfortable with her identity, that she wants people to know that I'm not male, I'm female. Okay. I don't know if you were too young at that time. There was a guy in Kenya here, alikuwa anaitwa, he was born mwanaume. Jina yake ilikuwa anaitwa Andrew. Then at some point, akaona hataki kuwa mwanaume, anataka kuwa mwanamke. So akabadilisha jina from Andrew to Audrey. Okay. So because alizaliwa mwanaume, alikuwa ameshika ID kama Andrew, whatever the other names were. That guy went to court, akashtaki serikali kwamba wambadilishie ID, watoe male. Hapo wanaandikanga hapo male, watoe male waeke female. Then wabadilishe ID yake jina iitwe Audrey. Because alifika mahali akaanza kuvaa kama mwanamke, akaanza kuenda saloon, akashuka, akafanya kila kitu. Okay. So such a person, even though they were born male, but they are more comfortable identifying as female. Okay. So the last thing is culture and society will play a big role, because the way you express your sexuality is influenced by the culture, by the societal norms. So where do you come from? How supportive is that environment? So someone who is born and brought up in a more supportive environment, they will feel free to express their sexuality. But if you come from a very restrictive, very naive environment, then most of these people hide their true selves. They hide what they feel like they should be. Not that they don't want people to know, but they fear that if people know kwamba I'm born male, but I want to be female, maybe people will not like it. So they hide out of fear. Okay. So culture and society, they play a big role in how people end up expressing themselves. So in short, sex and sexuality are connected, but they are very complex. So when you understand sex and sexuality as a multifaceted, a concept that has many faces, then it helps to foster empathy. Empathy is the ability to understand someone's feelings, someone's thoughts. So once you can now empathize more because you've understood, that there are people who will be born male, but they don't want to be called. Huwezi muita he, anataka umuite tu jina ingine. You use a different pronoun. So once you begin to understand that sexuality, how people are attracted to others, how they want to identify themselves, is different from the sex that they have, then it can help you now to know how to deal with such people as you meet them in society. Because the reality is, even here in Kibabi University, in the first year group, wale munanisikiza sahi, there are some of you who have that fight within yourself. You are born female, but you feel like you don't like being female. Okay, so if someone understands that there are people who feel the way you feel, then it is possible now that they can understand you. By understanding you, it now reduces stigma. Then now, after we've reduced stigma, then how we converse, how we interact with these people, we do that in a respectful manner, which then now enhances the diversity that we have in human life. Okay, so sex and sexuality, diverse as it comes. Ukiona mtu, when you might see someone who is a lady physically, but herself, she doesn't want to be a lady. You might see someone who is a man. You know him, anaitwa Rogers labda, lakini hataki kuji-identify as a man. So it is complex, but all we need to do is we need to understand that it is there. Once we understand that it is there, then we respect the decisions that people have made on how they want to be identified, on how they want to be addressed. Because naturally in English, if you are a female, I can say she is called, but there are people ni mwanamuke, lakini hataki umuite she because she's only female anatomically, but her identity is male. So once I understand that, then I'll know how to address you and I will respect your choice. Then tutatoa hii mgongano, tutapunguza stigma and will enhance a more cohesive society. So let's now move to the orientations and the minority groups that come with these orientations. So as we saw, orientation is about who you are attracted to. So whom do you have feelings for? Whom might you want to date? Who might you want to love? Whom might you want to build a relationship with? That is your sexual orientation. Okay. So whom you want, whom you have feelings for is a natural part of who you are as a person. And it can be different for you, and it's different for your brother, it's different for your sister. Okay. So it is natural and it comes as different as it can get. So the various types of sexual orientations, which we saw earlier, will now delve deeper into them. So one is what we call straight. Someone will tell you that, no, I'm straight. That person who identifies as straight is someone who is heterosexual, meaning is the attraction that someone has for the opposite gender. So you have a woman falling in love with a man. You have a man who falls in love with a woman. That's the heterosexual. Then there are people who will be homosexuals. They come in two categories, either gay or lesbian. So homosexual is when someone is attracted to people of the same gender. So a man who is romantically interested in other men is a gay. A woman who is romantically attracted to other women is a lesbian. Okay. So these are now the sexual orientations. There is another one, which is the bisexual. This is when someone is attracted to more than one gender. So this is someone who is attracted to both men and women. So he might want to date people of either gender. Okay, so such a person is bisexual. Then there is now another group who is attracted to a person, but not the gender. Okay, so such a group is called pansexual. Pansexual. So that happens when someone is attracted to people regardless of their gender. Okay, so they're attracted to any person, irrespective of if they are women, men, non-binary, binary, anyone in between. That is pansexual. Then there are those who are asexual. So they have very little or no sexual attraction to others. Okay. So the sexual attraction is what is not there, but they still might want to have the emotional relationships. Then there are those who are called queer. Queer, this is a broad term that describes the sexuality of people who don't feel like they fit into any of the categories we've given above. So they don't fit into any of those. So they are queer. Then the last identity, the last orientation is questioning. Questioning is still, you are still exploring. You are still not sure about your orientation. Okay, so you've not known, you've not figured everything out. You are still trying to ask, am I homosexual? Am I heterosexual? Am I pansexual? At that stage, you are still questioning. So with all these sexual orientations, what is important to remember is that there is no right or wrong orientation. People, as it is currently, they have all manner of orientations. So it is not you to now begin saying someone who is a homosexual, for example, is wrong. Then it's not correct for the homosexuals to look at the heterosexuals as being wrong. Okay. So the minority gender identities. So the gender identity is about how someone feels inside and how they see themselves. So how they feel, how they want to identify themselves. That's when you have someone who was born, for example, a woman, but they want to be identified as a male. Okay. So the categories for gender identities, the minority ones, for example, is the transgender. Transgender is when one's gender identity is different from the sex they were assigned at birth. So your parents at birth, they saw certain sex characteristics, wakasema, huyu ni mwanamke. But now you grow up and you realize, no, I'm not comfortable being a lady. I want to be a man. That is transgender. Okay. Then non-binary, when someone doesn't feel fully male or female. Okay. So they feel like they are both or they are neither. So that is non-binary. Then the gender fluid. There are people whose gender identity keeps changing. So one, they feel like they're a boy one day. They feel like they're a girl another day. So their gender is fluid. It flows. Okay. Then the other gender identity, which is a minority again, is the agender. When someone doesn't feel like they have any gender at all. Okay. There are people who feel like, no, I don't want to be addressed as a man or a woman. So they don't want to be put into that particular group. Then lastly, the intersex. So the intersex is someone who is born with physical sex traits that don't fit typical definitions of either male or female. Okay. So for example, if there is a baby who is born with both the ovary and the testicles, so they are sort of in between, so they are intersex. So when you look at the physical traits, the sex traits, you cannot categorize them at birth. Kwamba huyu ni mwanaume ama huyu ni mwanamke. So that is an intersex. So having gone through all these gender identities, and these are minorities because wanakuwa wachache kuliko watu wengine wengi, it is important to respect everyone's identity. So when someone chooses to be transgender, respect that. Okay. And by respecting their identity, it comes with the pronouns. So if someone is born a man, but anataka kuwa mwanamke, you don't say he. The choice yake anataka akuwe mwanamke. So you have to begin addressing that person as she, because that is his choice. Okay. So you respect it and use the pronouns that they desire. Because the reality is, even in the remotest of places, hata uende in the deserts and the arid areas of Kenya, you will still find people that have these sexual identities. So it is no longer an urban thing. Sio kitu ya wazungu tena. It's a reality that we live with this. So we have to embrace it. We have to try and accommodate them. Okay. So that as we move forward, we respect and we reduce discrimination. So that brings me to the next subtopic, which is why is it important that we need to understand minority and gender identities? So understanding that these people are there, it helps to promote respect and reduce discrimination. So when we learn about the diversity in these gender identities, we understand that being different is normal. It's okay to be different. It is normal to be different. So once we understand that it is normal to be who they are, then that will reduce bullying, that will reduce discrimination. Okay, that will help to reduce stereotyping. Okay, so the second point is when we understand that these minority gender identities are present, then we can create safer spaces. So when we understand that these identities are there, we can build environments where everyone feels safe and welcome. Okay, so whether it's in school, whether it's at work, whether it's back in the village, we need to understand that these people are there. So we just have to come up with an environment that feels them to be accommodated, because however much we want to stereotype and discriminate against them, they are not melting into space. They are still with us. So we need to understand that they are there. We need to teach and educate people about this diversity so that we can reduce harassment, we can reduce discrimination. So understanding that they're there also helps to support mental health and well-being. So people who feel seen and understood are more likely to have better mental health and higher self-esteem. So once we appreciate, once we recognize their presence, once we understand that they are part of us, they'll feel more appreciated and they will have a higher self-esteem. Then in essence, they might not be tormented. Okay, so they feel a sense of belonging. They feel that they are supported, they are known. Okay. The other thing is it encourages authenticity. When society understands and accepts gender diversity, people feel free to express themselves without fear of judgment or rejection. So when these people feel that the society knows that we are there, then whoever is transgender can go out there and say that I am a transgender. So they will not fear to express their true identity. Okay, and that helps a lot for them to fit into the society. So learning about minority gender identities helps us to grow into more compassionate and inclusive people. So when you are told, you are shown two ladies on the university wanatembea wameshikana mkono, you don't stop in the middle of the road, upige picha, upost masafara. Hapana, you understand that they are part of us. Okay, so we become more compassionate, we become more inclusive in society because we understand that these people are part of us. So how do we support and respect such people who have different gender identities? How can we support them? How do we respect them? How do we show respect to them? So if we support these people, if we show respect to people who have these diverse gender identities, it makes our societies safer, more kind, and more inclusive. So how we support them? The first thing is we need to learn more about these gender identities. And that's why now, for example, in this unit, we have to introduce you into the reality of this. So that as you go along the university, you are not shocked when you see some of these things happen. Not that we are promoting them, but we are just acknowledging that they are part of us. Okay, so when you take time to learn about the different gender identities, it helps you to understand and respect the presence of such people. So you understand that they are there. And once you understand that they are there, then you respect their presence. Okay. So we need to also listen and respect the people's feelings. Assume kuna msichana unataka kukatia. Wewe ni you are a first year, umetoka nyumbani, kijana mwanaume, umeona msichana mrembo unataka kukatia. You try all possible ways. Eventually unakutana. You go for a lecture, unajipata ni wewe na yeye mmetangulia huko. Then unatupa mistari. Then anakwambia no, me I don't do men. Me I only date women. Okay. You don't need to usitoke hapo uanze kutangaza. Respect. Okay. Respect her feelings. Okay. So their experience, their choice is personal. When they tell you that, understand, they will say, oh, okay, I understand. Because anaweza kuambia no, mimi I don't date, but naweza I can find someone. Maybe she has a friend. So we need to listen. We need to respect people's feelings. Okay, we need to respect their feelings. Then we use the names and pronouns that they choose. If someone tells you, unamjua kutoka nyumbani alikuwa anaitwa Shirley na amefika hapa anataka kuwa mwanaume aitwe Samson, call her Samson. Wacha kuinsist kwenda ati wewe tunatoka na wewe nyumbani unaitwa Shirley, umefika hapa. No, that is her choice. Respect it. Okay. The other thing you can do, speak up when you see unkindness. Because in society, hata labda amongst you, there are people you know who do what I'm talking about. So when such people, for example, walk into a class na mnajua kwamba hawa wawili ni wasichana ama ni wanaume and they are dating, wasifike class na mnaanza kucheka, wakiingia hivi mnalipuka. You know, is unkindness, is a sort of, you are stigmatizing them. So you have to make people understand that it is their choice. So let them be. Okay. So we have to respect what people have chosen to be. And let's ensure that we don't show unkindness to their choices. Then we need to support the creation of these inclusive spaces. So a space where everyone can feel comfortable. Assume there is a party yenye mmetengeneza kama first years. Maybe 5, 6 of you come together, mnasema bana tunataka tutengeneze party yenye tunakuja na our partners. So you don't know kwamba maybe mimi I'm also part of that group na mimi sina demu, mimi niko na mwanaume partner wangu. So siku ya party mumetengeneza, maybe mumeenda mahali mumechagua rooms. So mnasema tutakula huku alafu tuende tulale kwa hoteli, kila mtu room mmebook kila kitu. So only to see siku ya party mimi nakuja na mwanaume. Kila mtu amekuja na demu, but me I walk in with my friend. Okay? So you need, at that point, you need to ensure that even when I've come with my choice, please just respect it. Include us. Because no matter my identity, let me feel included. Let me feel supported. Sio kwamba nikifika na mnasema ai, wewe kwani ni nini bwana? Wewe umekuja na nani huyu? Then party inaishia hapo. You will not be creating an inclusive society. Because the reality is, kwa kunichekelea haitafanya labda niwache. Because that is maybe who I am. So we need to create these inclusive spaces where everybody feels wanted. So we need to be patient and keep learning, because we've talked of some minority groups kama questioning, kwa maanisha hatujajua zote. Kesho tena kutatokea ingine hata ile hatujawahi sikia. Okay? So we just need to be patient. We need to keep learning so that we understand these people more. We don't have all the answers yet. We don't know kesho nayo watachomoka na gani. So we just need to be there. We need to be patient. We need to be learning more. But what is important, respect people's choices, be inclusive, be accommodative. So the impact of culture and society on this topic of sex and sexuality. So cultural norms will shape behavior. So culture is just the set of unwritten rules about how people should act, how people should behave. And it's on the basis of that now we have what is considered normal and abnormal. So it means on the basis of culture, there are views, there are rules that will now shape how you view relationships, how you view gender roles, and how you view even sexuality. Okay. So there possibly could be, in some cultures, even dating multiple people before marriage is common, while in others, it's not. Okay. In some communities, boys are taught to be tough and not to show emotions. So that will make it harder for them to express love and affection freely because of the culture. So the rules that we are brought up in, they will shape us into certain people. And that is what will make us now begin to view that this is bad and this is good. So people may feel pressured to follow cultural norms, even if those norms don't match how they truly feel inside. Okay, so you are told usifanye kitu fulani, sababu sisi watu fulani huwa hatufanyi. Na sio kwamba we pia unafurahia, but ni vile culture inasema hivyo. Religion and personal beliefs. So religion can give people a sense of purpose. It can guide their values. But at times, it can also create inner conflict if someone's sexuality does not align with their faith's teachings. Okay. So if what you are taught on the basis of your religion, if you are told kwamba Mungu aliumba Adam na Eve, yet where you are not heterosexual, then it means what you believe in and what your religion is teaching you and what you believe in are now at cross purpose. So that will be now a cause of struggle. Okay, that will be a cause of struggle. The third thing is media and representation. So what you see on TV, what you watch in movies, it will influence how you view yourself and others. Okay. When media is showing narrow view of relationships, of gender, so that all you see in movies is a man and a wife as a couple, yet you are a homosexual, then you begin wondering. But if you watch movies which show people engaging in different sexual orientations, then in a way, it now makes you to feel that, oh, so I'm completely normal. Okay. Then there's the social stigma and discrimination. So some societies will judge people for their sexuality, for their gender identity. And such can cause emotional pain. Okay. So think of a teenager who might not, maybe you sit down as young guys from the village, mnaanza kudiscuss girlfriends, but there's a jamaa who haongelei girlfriend wake. The reality ni kwamba si ati anaficha girlfriend, labda yeye akona mwanaume as a friend. So such a person might not open up because of stigma, because of being teased, kuchekelewa. Okay. They might not open up just because of that. Even in public places, unaona choo wameweka mwanaume, mwanamke. But think of a transgender person who was born a female but now feels like a man. Ataenda kwa choo gani? So they don't know where to go, because akienda kwa female na yeye anaona akue mwanaume. Akienda kwa mwanaume, she has all the physical features of a female. So that is the struggle that is being presented. Then the changing attitudes and progress. So because of information, because of media, because of the transformation, education and everything, society is changing. And we are now beginning to appreciate that actually these people with different sexual orientations are present. Okay. So we need to possibly continue working a bit harder to create more safer, more inclusive spaces for everybody. So we need to learn, we need to listen so that we can accommodate these people. That brings me, most of you after college, mutaenda kwa kazi, mupate kazi, and then you are there at your place of work, mmetengeneza chama ya kuenda kuona watoto wakizaliwa. So you want everybody in the office to contribute. But then think of it, if I happen to be one of people in the office, and maybe I'm a man who is married to a man, yet ile chama mmeweka ni ya kwenda kuona watoto, na mnataka mimi pia nichange. Sasa mimi na bwana yangu mwenye ni mwanaume kama mimi hatutawahi zaa mtu. So when you come up with such things in the office now, you have to be very sensitive, so you accommodate people. Wale wenye wako, you can make it broader, that people choose what we do when it is their turn. Okay, but when you restrict it kwamba tunaenda kuona watoto na kuna mwanamke mwenye ameoleka kwa mwanamke mwenzake, huyo hawatawahi zaa mtoto, and you want them also to contribute. So what happens? Na hamutawahi enda kwake. Okay, so you have to come up with ways of which you become more accommodative. So as a final thought about sex and sexuality is that culture and society will shape people's experiences, but everybody deserves to live their truth without fear or shame. So when we understand these influences, it helps us to be more compassionate, supportive, and respectful of the diverse ways in which people will experience these aspects of sex and sexuality. Okay. So as complex as it comes, we need to be accommodative. Religion will play a part, culture will play a part, but what we know is that people will be different. Even at the university here, you will realize that possibly your roommate umeanza kususpect kwamba labda ako hivi ama ako hivi, or that classmate of yours, you've begun suspecting that possibly huyu jamaa ni kama ni mwanaume lakini ni kama ana date John. So what you need to do through this, you need to understand that people can be diverse. So that could not be enough reason for you to develop stigma, to begin discriminating that person. Kuenda kesho kwa hostel officer useme unataka kuhama, you want a different roommate, you know. So we need just to be accommodative. We need to know that people have different ways in which they express themselves, in which they connect, in which they identify themselves. And each of those, there is no right or wrong. What we need to do is know that they are there, and we appreciate the uniqueness of each person. We need to accommodate. We need to create an environment that is inclusive, an environment that is not discriminative. Because it's only that, especially in the campus here, where now most of you are just beginning to realize, beginning to identify yourselves. When we embrace that diversity, it will make campus life to be richer. We need to be respectful. We need to be compassionate. And we need to be empathetic so that we let every person feel valued, feel seen, and be left to identify freely for whom they exactly are. Okay? That marks the end of my talking. Okay, so I will mute and check if there are questions. Someone who is asking, uko sure transgender tukiwapiga viboko hawawezi badilika? It's difficult. Okay, it's difficult. Someone is asking, hii imepita aje haraka? There is one. Someone was asking, how do we be compassionate about what? Yeah, someone is saying it's important to respect someone's identity. If someone chose to be a lesbian, respect her. Yes, respect her. Okay, let it be. That is her choice. Someone is asking, if I may ask, sir, things about LGBTQ isn't all about copying the Western culture, which is degrading the society hazardously. The reality is, hii kitu mnasema kuchanuka, had it been that we were not copying what you are calling the Western culture, we will be speaking our languages. Hatungekuwa tunaongea Kiingereza. We will not even be dressing hizi manguo tunavaa. We could be walking around still tumefungana ngozi. And there will be no university to begin with. Okay? So, we ungekuwa sijui wapi, mimi ningekuwa wherever. So the reality is, we call it modernity. Modernity is happening. Modernity comes with good and bad. The bad side is always the disease that comes, the lifestyle diseases. But the reality ni kwamba, even traditionally, we still had gays, we still had lesbians. Hata kitambo, they were there. It's only that they had not been, there was not enough. I'm finishing class in like 10 minutes, so you can come back in 10 minutes. So kitambo, we still had gays and lesbians. It's only that they were not recognized. There wasn't enough information as it is now. Okay, so because of stigma, because of discrimination, kitambo hawa watu walikuwa, but walikuwa wanajificha ficha. So it's no longer about Western culture, it's just about the information that we have. Does it mean that someone who has never dated since he or she was born, maybe sahi ako campus ni asexual? No. It could mean that it's all about choices. There are people who could not date because they are waiting for the right time. But there are others, they don't have that attraction. Okay. So the ones who don't want to date, they have the attraction, but they are waiting. They are ni kama wanafinyilia hii attraction. So they say, but sio sahi. Lakini huyo wa asexual, si ati hataki, hana ile drive, hana the attraction. He or she doesn't feel the attraction. Okay. What actions should I take if mtu wa jenda yangu ananitaka kimapenzi? I gave an example that you are approaching a lady, you are a man. I am a man. So if I approach a lady and she tells me she does not date men, what should I do? I respect her decision. So for you, If someone is approaching you, they are just trying their luck. So it is for you to choose. Tell them, no, I'm a man, bwana. Wewe unataka mimi hiyo maneno hapana. And they will respect still your choice, but you don't fight. Don't get physical. Don't get abusive. You just need to appreciate that they are there. These people are with us, but you tell them kwamba mimi this is my orientation. If he's a man mwenye amekuapproach, tell them I'm heterosexual. So I don't do such things. They will respect your decision. Okay. Why do you think there are gender diversity? What causes to practice homosexual? The cause ni vitu mingi sana. Okay, what creates that diversity? One is the environment. Okay, we saw the influence of media, for example. Some of you want to watch and do what someone else is doing. Some of you want just to be explorative. You want to go and explore. But some of this is also biological, where you are born a man, but you have more hormones for being a woman. Okay, you are born a female, but the hormonal imbalance in your body, they trigger you to be more of a man. So some of these desires are biological, but some of them are also societal. So there's just pressure in the environment. There's just pressure. You have a friend mwenye unaona kwamba anafanya hii, so you also are pushed into doing it. Okay, but some of it's also biological. So the hormones that you have, the levels, the imbalance that comes. There are people who are drawing all manner of rainbows that I will not want to comment about. Someone is saying, may you burn in eternal fire. You are lost and you have to get to your knees and seek forgiveness. Okay. Hello, Dr. I have a critical question. Is science supporting LGBTQ? Science does not need to support it. The fact that these people are here, okay, is enough for us to appreciate that we have people who have a unique sense of attraction. Because even if science supports them or doesn't support them, does not make them to disappear from the face of earth. So it is just all about us appreciating that sexual orientations are different. There are people who will be male and date male. There are people who will be female and date female. We need to appreciate that fact. We need to know that they're there. And so the thing is, how do we deal with them? Do we accommodate them or we dismiss them, which will just be as if uko na nyumba yenye imechafuka, badala ya kufagia unanunua carpet unaweka juu. So thinking that they are not there is just living a false life. Okay. Okay. So I'm told that when two women marry each other, the one who acts as a mother goes out to look for a man to get her pregnant. The other one just provides support as a man does in a family. The aspect, kama kutakuwa na kuzaa, it must be the fusion of male and female gametes. So most people, I did my PhD from the UK. Na huko unapata watu wale wameoana male na male ni wengi, female na female ni wengi. What they do, wakifika mahali ya kupata watoto, they go and adopt. Because ukioana wewe ni mwanaume, uoe mwanaume mwenzako, hamutawahi zaa. Ukikuwa wewe ni mwanamke na uoe mwanamke mwenzako, hamutawahi zaa. So when one of you gets pregnant, possibly that person was bisexual. So alikuwa anakona mwanamke na akona mwanaume pia. Okay. And anytime now the other woman in that relationship Akiona hiyo mimba anajua tu, because there is no way a woman will make another woman pregnant. There is no way a man will make another man pregnant. So long as there is an aspect of pregnancy, there must be a different gender that was involved. Someone is asking a very interesting question. Is there a problem when you marry a lesbian? So a lesbian is a lady who is dating a lady. So I'm thinking whoever is asking this question is a man who is dating a woman, and that woman is possibly bisexual. So the woman is having you as a man and also having another lady in the relationship. So I don't want to say there is a problem or not, but that is a personal choice. All I said is we need to appreciate that these people are there. When you realize that you are dating someone who has a girlfriend, you sit her down and discuss it out. Umuulize now, what is the problem? So what is it that you want? Mwingine ameandika hapa ati no, there is no problem, but tujua utagongewa na demu. You can now discuss all those things. Umuulize now, here I am as your husband, but you still have Jen. So how do we go about this? Mutafika mali mutaelewana. But I don't want to put a label. Niseme that is a problem or there is no problem. It's an individual choice. You sit down with her, then you decide, you discuss, and you will agree on the best way forward. I think I'm too old. Yes.
There's someone here asking,
yes,
can someone have 2 Y chromosomes and 1 X chromosome at the same time?
No, you cannot have 2 Y chromosomes. Yes. I don't want to turn it so much into deep biology, but it's only possible that you have 2 X chromosomes, but not 2 Y chromosomes. Okay. So you only can have XXY or XXX. You can have 3 X chromosomes, but you cannot have, for example, XYY. Very few such cases were recorded, and most of them hawaishi, watakufa very early.
There is another one here, I don't know. Hello doc, please advise ikiwa demu yangu hananga feelings naturally. Nafanyaje ndio aanze kupata ma feelings?
Sasa hiyo inakuwa namna gani? Well, okay, there is something called hormonal therapy. If the cause of diminished feelings is as a result of having low levels of hormones, then such a person can be helped kwamba aende wajaribu kutumia the hormonal therapy so that the amount of hormones in her body, they increase. Okay. So hormonal therapy could help at that point. So hormonal therapy could help. Someone is asking for a cut. Next week hakuna class, but hiyo wiki ingine ndio cut itakuwa online. So next week, Monday, no class, but Odell team watawaelezea when the other week cut itakuwa. Sawa. Someone is asking, does LGBTQ increase the rate of sexually transmitted infections? So how do you ensure that sexually transmitted infections inapunguzwa when you avoid exposure? So it doesn't matter if you are dating if you are heterosexual, homosexual, bisexual, anytime you want to get intimate, avoid exposure. So use protection. Unless you know the status of that person. I will answer this question, then we'll stop because it's almost 10 minutes after 10. So the reality is, for homosexuals, why HIV ilikuwa mingi sana mara ya kwanza kwa homosexuals, when for sexual intercourse to happen between a man and a man, it is likely that it will be anal sex. So the lining, the anal lining is very thin for the absorption of water. But the vaginal lining, when upon proper lubrication, the vaginal lining is not as thin. So it means because of the thin anal lining, it is likely to break during intercourse. But when proper lubrication has happened, then heterosexual intercourse will lead to a reduced breakage of the vaginal lining. That reduced breakage will now mean reduced exposure. So that's why we had high HIV rates among the homosexuals. So LGBTQ does not necessarily increase the rate of sexually transmitted infections. All you need to do when you don't want to be exposed, protection. It doesn't matter whoever you are engaging, unless you know the condition, you know the status of that person. And we said, usivae condom na unaingiza kidole. Because ile kidole pia itakuwa exposed tu. Isivae condom na unafanya namna gani? Na you are going down oral. Unaenda kunyonya na umevaa condom. So it beats the logic. Umevaa condom na uko unanyonya matiti. It beats the logic. Because at the end of it, you are just exposing yourself. Okay, I think we stop there, Bonnie. Yes, this is the last lecture. This is the last lecture. All of you, next week, ndio hakuna class, but Bonnie and the ODEL team, they are competent. They will tell you when on the other week, ile time tutakuwa na cut. Whoever has not enrolled, enroll, because itafungwa. I think by Monday itakuwa imefungwa. So enroll within this week so that wanafunga Monday, then cut itakuwa the other week. Sawa sawa.
Yes, Doc.
Yes,
Doc.
Bonnie.
Yeah, I think just on that enrollment issue, all students should be enrolled to this particular unit on the learning management system. So
Okay.
if they have any challenge, they should come early enough, and then just alert them that there won't be any makeup cut. Mwenye
Yes.
ako na shida yote, mwenye simu haifanyi aenda aitengeneze mapema. Mwenye hana bundles anunue mapema kabla siku ya cut, because we will not have any excuse kuwa mtu hakufanya cut ama nini. Mwenye ako na matanga aende tu mapema ili hiyo siku ya cut ikifika. It's just like the normal cut that is sitting. It's just like when you miss out an exam and all that. So to minimize that, anyone who has any challenge, technical challenge, we are always here at ABB 101.
Yeah.
Let them come, let us address the challenge early enough before the day of the cut. Yes. And then if anyone has a question, you can just raise your hand so that tumalizane na lecturer mbio mbio. Anyone who has any question, maybe just raise mkono. Ongea na lecturer direct. But in case of anything that is technical, come to ABB 101.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, Bonnie.
I'm not seeing any hand, Dr.
Yeah, that's okay. Okay, so I see people. We will upload all the notes. Okay, we will upload all the notes. There should be 8 from KUC 1230 notes 1 to KUC 1230 notes 8. So we will upload them. So as Bonnie has said, hiyo cut ukimiss, shauri yako. And when you are doing it, click submit. Last time kuna watu wengi walikuwa wanafanya na hawa click submit. Sawa sawa. So when you finish, kama uko na challenge, go and see Bonnie before. Go to the ODEL team, watakusaidia. Isifike hiyo siku uanze kusema sijui nini ilifanyika. Hapana. Sawa sawa. Okay. People are wishing me well. Thank you very much. Someone wants me to live long. Someone else is asking, kwani amemaliza kufunza? Yes, nimemaliza. They will upload the notes and the cut order team will tell you, but it will happen hiyo wiki ya chini, not next week, so that you can revise. Thank you so much. I'm always present whenever I am around. You can find me in ABC 310. ABC 310. Kwa hiyo notes, there is my email hapo chini. When you have an issue, you can send me an email, then we can talk. Otherwise, it was nice meeting you, sharing knowledge. I look forward to meeting you again in the exams, which I hope itakuwa tu sawa. Someone wants niweke picha. Nitapost picha Masafara, mtaniona. So thank you so much. Bonnie, you can end the class. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, Doc.
Okay.